Granted, I stopped sharing the screen with you, so that doesn't help. So we're talking about linear equations with two variables. Right? Which means we have one or more variables. And what we're talking about today is how to write them, how to graph them, and we're not going to go past slope-intercept form today, right? So when we have two variables, how do I want to state this? We can create something called the write any equation in what we call the slope-intercept form. And the slope-intercept form of an equation is super convenient because it gives us a lot of information. Slope-intercept form of an equation. Does anyone remember what the slope-intercept form of an equation is? Anytime I talk about writing equations, this is the one thing people always yell at me. As far as the form of an equation goes, it's the one thing people remember. And you'll hear it called y equals mx plus b. Not square, you were close. You had the y equals mx, but you just want the y equals mx plus b. Right now, we're talking about linear equations, right? So there's no squaring anything. And the reason that this form is so useful is because this m value gives us the slope, and this b value gives us the y-intercept, right? And what that means is from this, I can graph the line of this equation, right? If you think about that, if I have y equals 2/3 x plus 4, right? If I wanted to graph this equation, what I know is that my slope is m equals 2/3 and that my y-intercept is at 4. So if I wanted to graph this, I can graph. So if I didn't make my points too big here, because I just made them up off the top of my head, I know right away that I have a point on this line, my y-intercept, my y-axis, my x-axis. I know that I have a point at 4, right? I know it because it's my y-intercept. So I know that on that y-axis, I have a point at 4. And from that slope, from my m, I don't know if you guys remember this, but it equals our rise over our run, right? So if I have 3 halves, I can go up 3 and over 3. So I could go up 3 in this direction, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2. Or I could take them both negative and I could go down 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2. So I could have a point here or I could have a point here. And when I connect them, I have a straight line, and that is the graph of the equation. It is why we like slope-intercept so much. So there's a couple things that we need to know when we're using slope-intercept form, right? One is, how do we find a slope? Does anyone remember how we find a slope? Well, we can start if we're giving an equation, and I need to find the slope of that equation, say I have 2x plus 3y equals 7, right? I just made this up off the top of my head, but I can find the slope of this equation by solving for y, right? So you can solve for y will give you slope-intercept form, right? So to solve for y, I've got to start undoing everything that's being done to it. So I'm going to subtract 2x, and I get 3y equals negative 2x plus 7. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Now I'm going to get some crazy fraction answers. Why? Because I just made up the problem off the top of my head. I'm going to divide by 3 because I don't care what 3y equals. I care what y equals. And I will get y equals minus 2/3 x plus 7/3. Now I'm in slope-intercept form. This tells me my slope is negative 2/3, right? My y-intercept is 7/3, right? Which is what? 2 1/3. So I have those 2 points. Once I have a point and a slope, I can graph any equation. It is the reason why we do it. So if it's in standard form, I can always find the slope and the intercept by solving for y. What if I have something like y equals 2? Anybody know what that looks like? If I were to try and graph it, maybe. Would you know what y equals 2 means? We're set up in the y equals mx plus b form, correct? Because we've solved for y, but we have no x, right? So our slope is 0. It means it doesn't curve. It's going to make a straight line, kind of like this. So if I have y equals 2, here at 2, I'm going to have just a straight line that goes right across, right? This would be the graph of y equals 2. Because in this case, our slope is 0, right? Y equals 2 means that m, or our slope, equals 0. Because if I had, doesn't matter, right? If I have y equals 0 times x plus any number, right? When I multiply this through, because my slope equals 0, I'm just going to wind up with y equals 4. Does that make sense how we get that 0? Our other slope that you might be concerned with is if I have x equals something. So I have x equals 3. When I graph that, need sound effects when I'm graphing. That would be a straight line up and down like this at 3. And we consider this to be an undefined slope. So if we don't have the y-intercept, then our slope is undefined. Where to next? What if you don't have an equation at all and you're just given 2 points? As long as you can find any 2 points on a line, you can find the slope of that line. Does anybody remember the slope formula? The slope of a line passing through 2 points. Nobody remembers anything? If I have 2 points, we can call one x1, y1, and we can call the other one x2, y2, right? Doesn't matter what those x and y's represent, right? As long as I have any 2 points. And I want to find the slope of the line that passes through those 2 points. I have a formula, and that formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Oh, sorry, x1. So what does that look like in real life? Say I have a point. Do I have any points listed here? -2, 0, and 3, 1. And I want to find the slope of a line that passes through both of these points. I'm going to go m equals, and let's just make this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. I'm going to have 1 minus 0 over 3 minus a minus 2. Right? 1 minus 0 is just 1. 3 minus minus 2 is like saying 3 plus 2. It's 1/5. Now, next time I see you, we'll work into how to write the equation of a line given 2 points. And we'd find the slope and plug it into the point slope form. But I want you guys to find me the slope right now of the line that passes through the points 3, 4, and 3, 1. I want you to put it into the chat box. And I expect everybody to put something into the chat box. I don't like that one. As soon as you get it, put your solution into the chat box. Anybody else get something? Got 6 people showing up. That means I'm missing like 8 others. So we have minus 3 over 0 is what most people are getting, and that would be your correct response. If your 0 is on the bottom, it's an undefined slope. Your work is right. You got the right numbers, right? But if your 0 is on the bottom, consider this, it's an undefined slope, which just means that you have a straight vertical line. But you guys all did the work right, which is the important part. I don't want to move into that yet because I kept everything in terms of slope. The only other thing I want to talk about is writing the equation of a line. If you're given a point and a slope, if I get m equals 4 and I get a y intercept of 3, you should be able to write the equation of this line because we know that y equals mx plus b. So if I have my m and I have my y intercept, I can write it as y equals 4x plus 3. Easy enough? You thought the y's were sorry about that. So given m equals 2/3 and y intercept equals 17,000, just for fun, I could write the equation in this line. It would be y equals 2/3 x plus 17,000. I would hate to be the one who had to make that graph to put the y-intercept at 0.17,000, but you get the general idea, right? You can write, as long as you know the slope and you know that y-intercept, you can write the equation of any line. I am going to stop it there because I didn't take it past that on the homework. I will be taking it past that on Friday when I see you. It'll get a little bit more complex because we're going to take 2 points and we're going to use that to write the equation of a line. We're going to work our way through it. But I used up a little bit of too much time today reprimanding all of you for not turning on your cameras. Let me stop the video here and then